Hello. Hello and good evening. Um, oh boy. I know I'm like a little late. It's like 8:02 and I said I was going to be on at 8, but it's totally fine. We made it. We made it. Basically I'm playing with my ring light, which fun fact, I don't like my ring light. As you can see, like it's so bright. Um, I don't love it, but that's fine. Totally fine. So, I'm going to go over just the breakdown for tonight and how it's going to go, and then I'll get into it. And if you guys do have any questions, just leave them for me in the chat, or if you're watching this later, please leave it down below in the comments. So, oh, and you see my wire back here. That's cute. All right. So, also, I want to say I'm drinking tea today out of my favorite little fox mug from Molly Makes Critters. She made this, and I am drinking it's like Senna chamomile. I think that's how you say it, Senna chamomile, with coconut milk. So it's very, very hot. I literally brewed it like 5 minutes ago. So it's really not done steeping, but it's incredibly hot right now. Like it's hard for me to like lift it up. So anyways, rundown for tonight. I'm going to try not to ramble. I have a couple of things to go over before we get started. I want to do something that I'm proud of myself for this week, and I want you guys to share that also. And then I'm going to get into the top 3 Enneagram search terms that I found. And for each of those, I will go into my opinion, I guess, about those, and some things that I know from other people, just some research that I have found. So let's get started. I'm going to try not to move my table because I can see that it's making my laptop move. So first things first, I, in the past, have done lives on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. And I did it because it was just a really nice casual way to like start the weekend for me. Like I would sit here with like usually my cup of coffee and just chat about the Enneagram. So I was wondering if that is something you guys would enjoy still, or if you like me doing these on like at night at night at night. That's what I meant to say. So let me know in the chat or the comments if that is something or whichever one you prefer. If you really like mornings around 10 a.m., or maybe you want it at a later time or an earlier time, or if you like doing these lives at night, even during like a weekday. Like I do understand like Tuesday night, I'm probably home. And so it might be nice just to sit down and, watch a live on a weeknight. So, my nose is stuffy. It's been raining a lot. And so I think things are like growing. So my nose has like been on and off stuffy. Also, I do want to remind everyone that I am doing the Childhood Messages series. And so as of right now, I think my first 2 videos have come out. It's a like what is a childhood message and the childhood message of a type 1. And so the rest of those types 2 through 9 will come out every Friday night at midnight. I think it's technically like Thursday at midnight. So when you wake up on Friday, it'll already be uploaded and here and premiered and everything. So check those out. They're really short. The whole point is just to kind of give people a rundown of their childhood message. And it's something that I've really wanted to do for a long time. And next up will be soul child theory, which I'm also really excited about. So anyways, Um, and last thing before we get into it is my Pride Pad. This is inspired by Sarah Jane Case. She is an Enneagram expert in Asheville, North Carolina. She is also an author. She's written a couple of books. I was reading one of them. Why am I blanking on the name of it? It's a light blue book. I can picture it and everything. And of course, now that I'm under pressure and on camera, I can't think of what it's called. Um, Anyways, it's a great book. Sarah Jane Case, look it up. Very wonderful book. I enjoy her content on YouTube and Instagram. And I'm about to read, or I'm about to listen to actually, her latest book, which she recorded on audio. So I'm so excited to listen to it. But anyways, in the book, the previous book, she, for type fours, which I'm a type four, she suggested for us to have a pride pad. So instead of practicing gratitude, because that could feel a little stuffy, and I do understand that, like it can feel a little like I'm grateful for the air. I'm grateful for sunshine. I'm grateful for food. Like you just kind of start to like just name stuff around you as opposed to like truly being grateful. Like, and it could be a good thing. Like it can be a good thing just to name those things. But she suggested instead, because type fours deal a lot with shame, to instead at the end of every day name something that you are proud of yourself for doing. So I want to do that in my past lives. I've also done this. So for me, what I've been proud of myself for doing this week, particularly today, I really struggle with like sticking up for myself and speaking up because one, I just don't want to disappoint people. Like I don't want people to be mad at me. I do relate to type nines in that I don't always want to rock the boat because I just don't feel like dealing with like the upset that could happen or the consequences that might be negative. So I usually just don't say anything. However, today I had a trainer, like a gym fitness trainer, come up to me in a grocery store and tried to give me like a flyer to go to his gym. And like he came up to me and it was fine. And he just randomly came up and was like, "Hey, would you be interested in coming to my gym?" And so of course, like I look at the flyer, I'm like looking at it and didn't speak for, I mean, a second, like literally did not speak for a second. And he just followed up with another question and said, "What gym do you go to?" I'm like, okay, you're not letting me speak. So I said, "I'm not interested at all." And I walked away and he tried to say something again to me. He was very friendly. He tried to say something to me and I just ignored him. And I'm proud of myself for doing that because I would have kind of like been very uncomfortable and maybe have been like, "Oh, maybe I'll come," like I'm not going to, but like, try to be really nice. And I'm glad I said something because I know not all trainers are like this, but I've had a lot of experiences with trainers who do not listen to me, do not listen to what I want, do not listen to my goals, to my thoughts on fitness or what I'm seeking by going to a gym, or just what I want for my body, and instead they push kind of an agenda. To be honest, it's always like there's something in it for them, and so I don't love trainers, and so which I know not all of them are like that. So when that happened, I'm really proud of myself for just saying like I'm not interested at all, which is the absolute truth. I was not interested in going to his gym for a lot of other reasons, but we won't get into that. So, whatever you are proud of yourself for doing today, or this past week, or past month, please let me know in the comments. I really want to know because I think it's kind of cool. And it can be very hard. I'm realizing as I get older, there are a lot of people who do really struggle with speaking up for themselves and maybe saying what they really mean and struggle to not to people please. So if you haven't done those things, awesome. All right, so let's get into top 3 Google, or just top 3 search terms pertaining to the Enneagram. So what I did is I literally went to Google and I typed in Enneagram, and the top 3 searches that came up were in this order: Enneagram Test, Enneagram, and Enneagram Types. So Enneagram Test, Enneagram Types. I want to start with the first one, Enneagram Test. And honestly, that did not surprise me that came up, because if you're like me and very just much wanting to know my personality type, whatever, for whatever thing I'm doing, Myers-Briggs, I forget the names of the other ones, the one with the animals, the one with the colors, those things. I always want to know. I always want to know what I am. So it did not surprise me that Enneagram Test was the number 1 search term that I found. However, I want to give you some of my opinion, which is that the Enneagram Test is not effective. I think it should be used as a jumping off point. So let me explain a little bit. I'm going to try to keep this brief. Testing behavior has a lot to do with your environment in that current moment. It has a lot to do with your headspace. Are you thinking, I can do this or not? Are you under stress? Are you not under stress? It can have to do with, are you, in a job where you're having to think of new ideas every day? Are you in a job where you're helping people and supporting others? Are you burnt out, at your job? Are you going through a transition in your life? There's a lot of factors that go into your testing score. And I know for someone like me, I do not do well under pressure, and I've always been a very poor test taker. Because as soon as I know that I'm being graded, I'm being watched, I'm going to be scored on something, it puts pressure on me, and I feel stressed and my brain shuts down. And so I've never done well on tests. And as a teacher, that is my day job. I teach 2nd grade, and I have had so many students who will have to take a test of some kind and do poorly. I will retest to these students one-on-one, retest to them. And they and I will be like, is it A, this, B, this, C, this, or D, this? And they'll pick the wrong one. I'll modify it and I'll say, is it A, this, or B, this? And they still pick the wrong one. And then later on, I just go I might say something I'll just ask a very open-ended question, and they can give me a great answer, like a good grade on their report card answer. So testing is not effective. And this carries over to adults, not just my students, but this is for adults. And I will say, to give a personal example with an Enneagram test, I literally Googled free Enneagram test. This was 7-8 years ago. And I took this test 3 or 4 times. I took this particular test. The first 2 times that I took the test, I basically got the same score. I was a type 2. That was my number 1 most answered questions were type 2. The next one up was a type 9. And then my third one was actually a tie between type 4 and type 6. The second time I did this test, I think it was pretty much the same thing. And then the third and fourth time that I took this test, it told me I was a type 4. I was like, what? What in the world? Well, I realized it took me a few years to really realize this, but I did realize that at the time when I took this test, especially the first like 3 times, I was in church. I was going to churches, and I used any and every opportunity to serve. And it was like applauded, and people really praised me for serving and being kind and being welcoming and things like that and being helpful. So therefore, I got a type 2 on this test. And if you don't know, the archetype of a type 2 is the helper. Think about someone who just loves to help you, even if it means like butting into your business, like they love helping you. So it was my environment, and it was what I was told I was good at. And so I really like, that's how I identify. I was like, oh, I'm a helper. I'm a helper. And it wasn't until I searched, went on my little journey of trying to learn more about the Enneagram, that I realized I was a type 4. And for me, that looked like reading the book, The Road Back to You by Ian Michael Cron and Susan Stabile. And I read type 2s, the chapter, and I was like very 50-50 on it. Like some things I related to, like wanting to help people, but things I didn't relate to was like butting into people's business and helping them even when they say no. Like I'm very like, if you tell me no, I'm like, all right. Like I have a fear of rejection. And like if you look at me weird, I will read between the lines and be like, oh, no, they don't want me near them. So I definitely am not that much of a helper. And then I read, I forget why, but I did read the chapter on type 4s. And that's when I was like, oh, I am definitely a type 4. And so that's it. I won't go into all that. But looking into the Enneagram and looking into all the types was what helped me discover that I'm a type 4. So Enneagram test, not a great idea. If you do want to take one, the one test that I know that is pretty solid is it's a free test by Beth McCord of Your Enneagram Coach. I will say as a disclaimer, she is a Christian. Her husband is a pastor. I don't know if she identifies as a pastor also, but her husband is a Christian pastor. And so her test is Christian based. However, I had a non-Christian take the test, and it's pretty solid. Like it's good. It's a good starting off point. So I can recommend that. Besides that, just look into Enneagram. I suggest looking at books. Beatrice Chestnut is a fantastic Enneagram expert. So is Ian Michael Cron and Susan Stabile. They are Christians, but The Road Back to You, I didn't get a ton of Christian vibes from it. Some towards the end, but of each chapter, but not too much. They really write it more just factual and not so much through a Christian lens necessarily. I don't know if I said that right, but yeah, it was good. It's a good book. The second term that was the most searched on the internet is just Enneagram and like what it is. And so before I get started, I do want to take my tea out, the bag out. I don't know about you, but like I just don't like super strong tea. Hold on one second. I'll be off camera for a second. All right, and I like I put the my ring light is just like a notch softer, a notch dimmer than it was before. The brightness is driving me crazy. Ooh, this is pretty good. All right, so Enneagram. The Enneagram is I had to write this down. It is a system based on 9 core motivations. That is then divided further into 27 motivations. These are called subtypes. The purpose is different. The whole purpose of the Enneagram is different depending on who you talk to or who you read. I will say, to give a source, the Enneagram Institute has a great definition of the Enneagram. It's just very long. And so I was like, I'm not going to read it out of here. It's very long. But yeah, that's basically what it is. A lot of people say it's a personality test, but I have a really hard time with that because to me, personality is very surface level. And the Enneagram does touch on personality, but it's not based on personality. It talks about your personality, but what it's mostly based on is your motivations and where that came from. Like even where you got, like how your motivations were formed, aka childhood messages. Check out my videos. So I don't love saying it's a personality system. I like saying it is a tool for self-growth, in my opinion, or just a way, for self-growth and or self-awareness. So that's the Enneagram, in my opinion, in shorter terms. All right. The third most searched term that I found was Enneagram Types. So I'm going to try to go through the Enneagram Types. Give me a second because I want to do these justice because I am trying to go fast and so it is very easy for me to stumble over my words because I really just I get very excited, but I also want to like do things right. I think that's pretty normal. I think everyone kind of feels like that. So let me go to one of my sources, which is, it is Beth McCord of Your Enneagram Coach. I am not a Christian. She is. I am not. However, I am certified as a certified Enneagram coach through Beth McCord because through her company organization, because she was probably the first Enneagram expert that I followed on Instagram, and I really liked her stuff. She puts things pretty simply. She does put a Christian spin on it because she is a Christian. And so she does look at things through that lens. However, I just really liked her stuff. I thought she did put things in simple, easy to understand terms. And so when she offered the coaching course, for 2020, when we were all quarantined, I was like, yeah, I totally want to do it. And I was supposed to be taking it, like it was supposed to be like a 3-month thing. It's self-paced, but I did it all in like 2 weeks because I wasn't going anywhere. Not a lot of us were going anywhere. So I still use her stuff. She's fantastic. And so let's go through the types. And I wanted to go through each type's like archetype to see if that resonates with anyone. And they're very general and they can kind of be stereotypes, but like that's kind of what an archetype is in a weird way. So I also want to go through maybe give some like literary characters for each type. I'm going to try to at least. Fun fact, I love Harry Potter. So if you don't know the character I'm talking about, then I apologize. I'm going to try my best. Yeah, I relate a lot of things to like Harry Potter or The Office or Friends, something like that. All right, so you know what? I'm going to start on type 4 because I'm a type 4. I'm doing it. All right, type 4. The archetype for us type 4 is a romantic individualist. They like being individuals. They are sometimes seen as very creative, sometimes very like an artist personality. And I can't really think of a good like type 4 character. Like that can be really hard. Type 4s are sometimes misrepresented a lot in media. In fact, I follow a lot of like Enneagram like experts and enthusiasts. And when it comes to type 4s, it's really hard for them to like give a literary character with a type 4. The closest thing that I can think of that I was told, I forget who the guy was, but he actually said Michael Scott in The Office was a type 4. And he was mostly doing it to illustrate a type 4, not actually thinking he's a type 4, because ultimately these are literary characters. They're made up and not real people with real childhoods. You know what I mean? So he said Michael Scott because Michael often, he really wants to be recognized for what he does. And he won't ever openly ask for praise, but he will like try to kind of get people to like, oh yeah, I had a really hard day today, you know? And like he just wants people to like ask him about his day. And then of course people get annoyed with him, but I don't. So I do think he can be in some cases a great example of a type 4, just wanting to be like recognized and seen for who they are. Because type 4s really just want to be genuine and authentic people. They have a hard time like faking it. So yeah, it's hard to think of like a true literary character who I think is a type 4. Anyways, so let's go to type 5. Love type 5s. Their archetype is the investigative thinker. They really like to be competent. In fact, they're usually those people that you might know who don't say a whole lot, but like when they speak, like they kind of know, when they do speak, they know a lot. Oh, and my lights just went on. They're on a timer. I know several type 5s, and they're very quiet until a topic comes up that they know a lot about, and they really know a lot. Sometimes they can be seen as like knowing too much. So I know the literary character who I heard could possibly be a type 5 is Stanley in The Office, because when he knows something, like he doesn't say much, but when he knows something, he knows a lot about it. And he can kind of be he can come off as very condescending about it. Some type 5s come off that way, but not a lot of them. Not a lot. They usually just come off as kind of quiet and maybe have a hobby that is very like niche. So like their hobby won't be like swimming or I don't know, painting. Like their hobby would be something that you're like, interesting. Where do they come up with that idea? You know what I mean? That's the best I got for type 5. Type 6, their archetype is the loyal guardian, and they are very focused on security to guard themselves against things that they fear could happen. So, ooh, excuse me. Yep. Ooh, yeah. It's the allergies. It's also getting really warm in here. I don't know why. So, literary characters. Dwight in The Office could definitely be a type 6. If you watch The Office, he's very loyal to Michael, maybe like to a fault. Type 6s can be like that. Like they when they find a leader who they trust, it's not all leaders, but when they find one they trust, they will like be very loyal to that person. I know there's also like an episode where Dwight is showing the camera crew like all the weapons he has stored in the office, all around the office, like just in case, like the back of the toilet seat, like up in the ceiling, like in a drawer, like in the like break room. And sixes love to be prepared. Like they're always thinking like, what if this happened? I need this. What if this happened? Then I want this. Like they can be those people. Also, I often think about like Ron in the Harry Potter series. Like he can also be loyal to Harry almost to a fault. I mean, you think about like he has such as if no spoil. I hope if you haven't seen Harry Potter and you don't want a spoiler, just skip through this part. But in like Chamber of Secrets, like remember he says like he hates spiders. He has like a deathly fear of them. And then of course, when Harry's like, let's go into the forest to track down the spiders, Ron's like, I really don't want to, but he goes anyways because he's loyal to Harry. That's another great, he's another great example. I also think of Monica from Friends. She's definitely type 6. Like she loves to be prepared. She has a hard time when things don't go her way because she feels so like not prepared. All right, type 7s. So their archetype is the entertaining optimist. I also like to think of them as like your fun friend. It's kind of a stereotype, but they usually are like they really like to have fun in some capacity. Like they're very focused on that. I couldn't really think of a literary character who I definitely think is a type 7. Maybe Jim in The Office, like just someone who they want to make everyday life not mundane. And so what do? They look for ways to have fun. They're very motivated by this need to cover up the negative with positive, which can be a bad thing, you know, reframing things when you're like, it just sometimes things are bad. But it can also be like a super great strength of theirs, to take something that people hate and make it into something not so bad. So I love my type 7s. I have a friend who's a type 7. Actually, I have 2 friends who are type 7s, and they're very positive people. But I've definitely seen them sad before, which is awesome. Some type 7s aren't like that. Next is the type 8. Their archetype is the protective challenger. The stereotype of a type 8 is that they're like bulldozers, they're jerks, they will run you over. But a lot of it is to protect themselves and to protect those that they love. I think a lot about like Harry Potter. He is definitely, he has to be a type 8. I mean, he has like a dream about his godfather, and I think it's Order of the Phoenix, about his godfather like being killed. And so, you know, I think someone tells him, I forget, it's been a while since I read those books, but you know, someone tells him like, Harry, it was just a dream. We'll investigate this. Okay. You don't worry about it. And Harry's like, oh, heck no. And what does he do? He flies to the Ministry of Magic with his friends to save his godfather, who only shows up there because he hears that Harry's there, like something like that. So, that's a very type 8 thing. Like they will take you down if you threatened the people that they love or if you threatened them. So yeah, type 8s, great friends to have, but you don't want to be their enemies. And that's kind of their not so great quality, is that they can see things in a very black and white way, like your friend or your foe. Maybe not so extreme as that, but they do have a more black and white thinking. All right, type 9s, who I greatly relate to. Their archetype is the peaceful mediator. A lot of type 9s are seen as like really good friends. Usually because, unfortunately, they don't always speak their minds, which I hate. They should. I want them to. Like, they're usually very kind, empathetic people. Also, I apologize if you can hear my AC right now. It's very loud. It's very loud to me. Hopefully you don't hear it like I do. So the only literary character I can think of who is definitely a type 9 is Pam in The Office. And I say that because she's the kind, like, anytime, especially in like the first few seasons, like if Michael ever says, a crazy thing to her, like she doesn't say anything. Like she doesn't stick up for herself. She's mostly just like, oh, like kind of confused, like what? Like just kind of gives him that look, which is hilarious TV. But in real life, type 9s do have a really hard time, like speaking up for themselves and saying things like what is wrong with you? Or can you shut up for a second? Like type 9s are usually seen as very like in the middle people. Like they just are really nice, and even if you're a jerk, like they want to be nice to you because they usually don't want to deal with the consequences like I do of rocking the boat. So yeah, love type 9s. That's all I got. Pam from The Office, definitely type 9. All right, let's go back to type 1. Type 1, their archetype is the moral perfectionist. The best literary character I have is Hermione. And I say that because Hermione is very moral. Like she's a perfectionist, especially in the books. She always wants to do the right thing. The thing I love about type 1s is they will never lie to you, and if they do, they will most likely apologize at some point, or they will live with like an extreme guilt because they don't want to lie to you. Like they have strong values, they hold to those values, and they have a really hard time with people who don't uphold their values. I realized in my most recent rereading of the Harry Potter series, which was like, it's been like 7 or 8 years now since I've read those books. But when I did, Hermione, something that struck me was how Hermione and Ron were arguing. Like the first few books, like all they did was argue. And most of it was Hermione going, "We should do this." And Ron going, "Are you sure?" And Hermione like, "Yes, what's wrong with you? Of course we should do this. This is the right thing to do." And Ron's like, "I don't know about that." It's very type 1, type 6. So yeah, but I get it. I love me some type 1s. As a type 4, I go there in growth. I can take on a lot of traits of a really healthy type 1, being very moral. And even with soul child theory, I was a type 1, basically. We'll get more into that. It's a whole other thing. Type 2s. The type 2 archetype is the supportive advisor. Sometimes people call them the helper. And I couldn't really think of a good literary character that's a type 2. I know I've heard before, and this is literally like people on Instagram. I wouldn't even say they're Enneagram experts, but some people on Instagram have typed Hagrid in the Harry Potter series as a type 2. And I mean, I'm not convinced by that, but what I do see is that Hagrid is very willing to help and do anything to help, like Harry, Ron, and Hermione. And he's kind of there with like a helpful hand. And he kind of sometimes, I know in the books, he makes these assumptions that like they want to come like spend time with him, which they do and they love him. But, he's like, "Yeah, come to tea." And they're like, "We're busy." That's a very type 2 behavior, is to feel like if I'm not doing something for you, then you have no reason to love me, basically. Yeah, that's the best I got, Hagrid. And last but not least, are type threes. Their archetype is the successful achiever. Yeah, type threes are very concerned. They really like to achieve. They love to check things off a to-do list. The best character that I can think of is Andy in The Office. Like, this is very silly, but like, just about every episode he's in, he loves to bring up that he went to Cornell because, it sounds good. Like, oh, I went to Cornell. And he loves to like kind of drop that little bomb on people. Like, oh yeah, I went to Cornell. Like, he's so smart. Type threes really want to be seen as like competent in whatever they're doing. Also, in just how, and again, this is, a silly stereotype for a type three, but Andy kind of takes things very like seriously. Like, there's one of those early episodes with him, Jim, being very silly, kind of type 7, he puts Andy's, I think his phone or his stapler, I think it was a stapler in like a Jello mold. And Andy like freaks out over it. And then Jim feels very embarrassed. And I wouldn't say type threes are always like that. Definitely not. The type threes I know might roll with that, but they can feel threatened if someone were to ever point out that maybe they're not the people who they want you to think they are. Yeah, like just can be highly embarrassed by that. But again, that's such a stereotype. It's so silly. It was definitely for TV to make you laugh because I know several type threes and they are some very driven people, very inspirational, and they don't like criticism, but they can take it maybe more than I can as a type 4. So yeah, so there it is. Those are my my types and their literary characters. So if you want to know more about each type, I do suggest looking at my videos, I'll be having childhood messages come out every Friday through August. Yeah, through August, through the end of August. Those should be, hopefully they're helpful to you guys if you are trying to find your type. And I also suggest just go to the Enneagram Institute. They really have some great resources. Also, I realize like I'm lagging a little bit and I apologize if I am freezing for you. But yeah, that is it. That is all I have. And I will be back next month for another live. I think I have the topic, but I don't want to say it yet because I don't want to like log in and then you have an expectation of what it is, but I change it or something. So I won't say what it is yet. But let me know in the comments if you would prefer for me to do this live in the evening, on any evening, I don't care when, or in the morning. I love doing it Saturday mornings. But if that's not what you want, like if that's not the best, then just let me know because I am up for different things just to see what works for people. And yeah, so you guys, I hope you had a really good June. July is starting. It's very hot here. And I'm just going to be staying inside a lot. So yeah, happy summer. Hope things are good for you. And I will see you guys next month for more about the Enneagram.